All right, welcome back everybody. Hope everyone had a chance during break to go through our virtual exhibit hall. I neglected to mention this morning in my opening plug, we are giving away an iPad every day, and if you want to be entered in the drawing for that iPad, we need to go through and interact with every booth in the virtual exhibit. We'll put you in put your name in for that drawing, and then we'll announce later in the show the folks that won those. So do visit the exhibit hall. Make sure you support our exhibitors and our sponsors, because I said earlier, they make all this possible and really are the main engine behind our ability to help STEM education out. So thank you for all that. Okay. For our first lunchtime speaker of the day, I want to introduce Ms. Lauren Knausenberger, who is now the CIO of the Air Force. Prior to that, she served as the deputy, and preceding that was the Chief Transformation Officer and Director of Cyberspace Innovation in the Air Force also. And that's all before coming from a long and a successful career in private industry before coming over to the Air Force. So well qualified, looking forward to hearing her comments for today. So let me turn the floor over to Ms. Lauren Knausenberger, CIO from the Air Force.
Right, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, folks, for tuning in, and thanks to the Broadmoor and Deloitte and the AFCEA chapter out here for really pulling all of us off of our couches and out of the Pentagon for our first live keynotes, probably since COVID began. I was just realizing as my probably 10 colleagues in the back gave me a little bit of applause coming on stage that this is probably with those 10 people 10 times more than I've had in an audience since the beginning of COVID, because we've all been on video chats with each other. But really excited to chat with you today about equipping our airmen and our guardians for the digital battle space. So we'll jump right in. So first, General Wegeman told you earlier we want to stay away from the buzzwords. I will be guilty of a few buzzwords today. I'll also be very guilty of using a lot of pop culture references, so you can get the bingo cards ready there. But we're going to start out here. We are at an inflection point. I think that we all know this within our air and space forces, and we have a real choice. We can boldly go where no one has gone before. We can accelerate change and win. Or we can continue doing those TPS reports and just move along with the status quo and lose. And the thing is, we're all ready for the next frontier. I know I'm ready. I know all of our airmen and guardians are ready for the next frontier. But oftentimes, we're actually stuck in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Really, you have a great idea. You're going to have to kind of be the penitent man. There's a lot of prayer involved in getting things through in the Air Force processes sometimes. Get a lot of cuts going through the budget process. You have to kind of decode the cybersecurity processes. And then finally, sometimes just to get things over, you have to cross a bridge that maybe no one even knew existed. And then it's time for, acquisition. You must choose, but choose wisely. And we've all chosen the wrong cup when it comes to acquisition. And when it happens, things dismantle. And even if we have the right partner, the wrong acquisition strategy is going to make things fall apart. So a lot of the things that we're doing in agile acquisition right now are so important. And doing things like we're seeing at Kessel Run and the Platform One team, where we're buying for capacity rather than buying for even for capability sometimes, because we may have to pivot on how we harness that capability in the future. And right now, it takes us a really long time to purchase those capabilities. We need to be able to pivot. So this is a huge part of our challenge space. So you finally pick the right cup, you take a sip, maybe you even save Sean Connery's life, but then you realize even though you achieved this great goal, the darn thing, you can't take it past the seal. And you almost feel like for a moment, maybe I wasn't in Indiana Jones. The joke's on me, I was actually in Monty Python the whole time. So this is what happens to us over and over again. But what if we jumped over to Star Trek? And I promised for the Star Wars fans, I'm not going to disappoint you. We'll have at least one Star Wars reference. But today we're going to hang out in Star Trek world for a little bit. Imagine if we were the Enterprise. Imagine that you show up to work every day surrounded by airmen and guardians and leaders that really know how to use technology. And you show up and you have a holodeck. You can go through all of your mission planning there. If you saw Spark Tank this year, we actually had a team that did just that. They're using AR/VR technology to model our air training and do mission debriefs. And it was really funny to me. I actually thought of the old school Star Trek as they were showing how we do it today, literally planes on sticks sometimes. And so going from planes on sticks or paper, 2D, to the holodeck, having an AI assistant, having all of that data at our fingertips, being able to solve any mission problem. Because today, oftentimes we have to solve hard problems, but we first have to solve hard problems with our own tech stack. We have to avoid the friendly fire first, and then we can go do battle with the enemy. So what if we showed up to work every day and we had an AI-ready tech stack at scale? We had the mission-ready apps for the fight, and we had all of those digital-savvy airmen and guardians and leaders that could really speak fluently about tech all the way up that stack. Now, luckily, this is a lot of what we're trying to build today. And we've had some level of success in each of these pieces. And I'll go through a little bit of what we've done, but I want to share with you too, that enterprise, that place where you can go, where you have full command and control. Think of the C4ISR of the Star Trek Enterprise. All of the data that you can collect, all of the machine-driven insights, all of the resources that you have. When we think about JADC2, when we think about ABMS, combining all of those sensors, having those machine-driven insights, having that digital-ready workforce, that's really what we're building. And so this is 4 pillars of the CIO strategy on how we're trying to get after this. And I'll go through it very briefly, and then we'll jump into really what we're building today. But first, we have to have a rock-solid digital foundation. So that's building out a 21st century network, ubiquitous connectivity, a cloud you can trust, as well as combined with edge capability and using each for where they're most powerful. Now, my favorite edge case is my Tesla. My Tesla is constantly getting updates from the cloud, which is managing an entire fleet of vehicles all over the world, constantly taking in that data, retraining algorithms. But when it's time for my Tesla to keep me safe in an accident, it's not waiting for the cloud to push that data. The car is a sensor. It knows that it needs to make a split-second reaction. And everything that I do is fed back into those algorithms to keep me safe, whether it's telling me that there's a pothole or something else to avoid in the road, or whether it's telling my car how to do better with auto drive or how to keep me safer in an accident in the future. Now, we have a lot of work to do before we seamlessly integrate that across our warfighting environment, but these are the things that we're keeping in mind as we build out this future capability. We have to have a DevSecOps platform that our warfighters can gain access to get capability quickly, as well as to deploy their own capability when they need it. And finally, cybersecurity that works. We have a long way to go. We've made some really, really great progress with fast-track ATO and continuous ATO, deploying things quickly. But we have to be able to do it every time. We have to be able to trust each other. And actually, one of the biggest parts of the enterprise thinking is that once we do it once, everyone can use it if we do this right. We don't have to reaccredit environments. It's one cloud. It's ready to go. Come on in and use it. We're getting after user experience. Now, for a long time, we have been probably too focused on the tech stack. We need to be very focused on the warfighter. What do you need? And so over the past year, we've been asking the warfighters every single day, how is your IT doing for you? What specifically is in your way? And since we started measuring, our user experience numbers have actually gone up by about 20%. Now, some of that is we figured out that giving you endpoints that are actually capable of doing everything that you need, that's a huge thing. People have 70% or higher scores when they're using an endpoint with a solid state drive and with the appropriate amount of RAM. We found that people really love working from home, and we enabled that for our warfighters. And so there are a lot of things that are going great here, but I want to see our user experience numbers go up faster. And I want to see us doing even more. So we'll continue to partner with our airmen and guardians on that. Enabling digital talent. We're doing a lot to enable our airmen through Digital U. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And our senior leaders are getting very serious about making sure that every GO in the Air Force, for instance, can talk about AI for 5 minutes or more. And General Brown is serious about this. He's requested a series of primers, and at every single GO and SES session that I have been in with him over the past few weeks, he has said, I want us to be smart on this. I want a primer on this. I want all of us to be able to articulate why this is important to us and why this is important to our airmen. Because sometimes we slow ourselves down because we're talking about something, again, that's already been solved or because somebody just doesn't understand. And sometimes when you don't understand, you trust and go. And sometimes when you don't understand, you kind of put up the wall a little bit. So there's a lot of work to do there. And finally, we are entering a world of flat or declining budget. And that is really tough because while we're entering that world of flat or declining budget, most likely, we are also entering a world where the entire rest of the commercial world, their IT spending is going like this. They're making trades where better operations means fewer people having to fight through manual process. And where they're spending more and more on their digital infrastructure because they know that it's the foundation for their future competitive advantage. They will not be in business if they don't make this investment. And we know more and more that we will not be in business if we don't make this investment. So this is really huge for us, that we have to find that trade space. And this is one where we need all hands on deck. So we have Operation Flamethrower, and we actually have General Wegeman and General Radke in the room here with me today, Scott Heitman, Mark Packler. All of these folks are going after Operation Flamethrower, where we ruthlessly attack manual process, we get after redundant IT, and we just get rid of all of that redundant policy that's not ready for a 21st century. But we need your help. We need you to help us to see where to point that flamethrower. We need you to set things on fire yourself. Because you see some of those mission places where we just shouldn't be doing that anymore. And if you can replace your job with a shell script, go for it. We'll find you a better thing to do. Maybe go replace a few other things with a shell script, because we have so much need. We need our airmen to be writing code. We need our airmen to be learning about cloud engineering. We need that next generation of AI algorithm developers. We need folks that understand comm in an environment that includes Starlink and 5G and LTE and whatever else comes next. So there is room on the wall for everyone. We are the world's greatest Air Force. We are also the world's largest economy. And as a warfighting organization and as an economy, we need to be upping our game with digital workforce, and that starts here. And it also makes sure that we have to create that trade space for ourselves. So jumping in, this is some of the pieces that are coming together, and I'm going to walk through a couple of the successes here. But that foundation of enterprise IT, these are things that we're building today. We have a zero trust strategy that I'll chat with you about, and we're working more and more with our commercial partners to sort of turn this on its head, how we do network. We're very open. I'll be very honest, we don't have all the answers here. We have some really, really great things that are moving forward, but we still have challenges about connecting our many networks of global cities consistently at a level that we need to undergo daily business and fight the war. With devices, we've done a lot in this realm too, getting after better endpoints for the flight line, better endpoints for daily business, but there's more to do here. And the way that we buy these devices and service these devices, creating more of a 21st century IT store experience is a huge part of what we're doing now too. You've heard about Cloud One. It's now moving into the secret arena, which is going to help us a lot. The edge, I talked a little bit about that before. Where are we using cloud compute? Where are we using sensing at the edge? We do a lot of work at the edge, but we don't do it in a way that is synchronizing with our cloud and a real comprehensive strategy today. So that is something that we're actively working with our industry partners to develop. And the tools. I think back even to 2010, there's a Gallup survey that still sticks in my head. The #1 retention mechanism for corporate companies is, do I as an employee feel like I have the tools that I need to do my job? So think about the average airman and the average guardian. You signed up to fight a mission, and a lot of times we're not giving you even the same tools that we have in the commercial industry. You're using whiteboards, you're using PowerPoint, you're walking back and forth up and down stairs, entering things multiple times. There's a lot of room for error, there's a lot of stress. We have to do better here. And there are a number of initiatives going on to get after this. I'll tell you about a few of those. And so this enterprise IT structure that's coming together, this all provides the data that we need and starts to help us get after our data strategy and our data fabric, which Eileen Vadrine, our CDO, is working so hard to put together, along with projects like Brown Heron, along with groups like Kesselrod and Platform One, Kim Kreider out at the Space Force, Angie Cadwell at NORAD, just all doing incredible things in the data realm. And then finally, that data feeding into our artificial intelligence stack with incredible work going on up at the MIT Accelerator. A couple examples I'll share with you from NORAD later. And with the platform team actually partnering with the JAIC to provide out that joint common foundation so that every airman, every guardian, every warfighter across the DoD can make sure that you can just show up and you can write code, and you can get access to at least the training quality data we have. That's a huge part that we have to get after, is that even when we have data, it's in puddles, and we have to pull it together. We have to get it to the point where it is training quality data that can be trusted. We're doing all of these things at once, but we are seeing some pretty good progress. And then finally, we're using that data to feed back into our user experience to create a more reliable network. And I see these coming together in a way that is providing more capability to our airmen and guardians, but we still have a lot of work to do. So I mentioned before, Cloud One. So 166 apps in flight, 60 systems, 3.5 million users on a weekly average. Just some really impressive statistics here. And I'd say in the early days of Cloud One, it was really hard to get onboarded. We still haven't worked out all the kinks. We can still make it faster. But this is a huge enterprise service that we need to be leveraging more. Actually, most folks are using it every day. All of our public-facing websites, the portal, they're all hosted on Cloud One. Really, this cloud is the future of where we need to have all of our airmen coming, able to click a button to spin up your compute, shut down our data centers, and create trade space. We have Platform One, and this is just a couple of the things that the team has pulled off. They have 11,000 folks logging in daily. This is a team where you can show up with a development team, and 2 weeks later, they could be deploying an application to production for the warfighter with an ATO. And that is huge. We don't have to have teams build their own cloud anymore and then build their own tech stack, and then, inshallah, you're building an app a year later. So developers now can show up. You can join the party bus. You can jump into the big bang model. Whatever you need, you can show up and just start focusing on delivering capability to the warfighter. And that is how it should be. And this team, by the way, they're doing 20 commits per day. I remember in the early days of Kessel Run when we were just absolutely wowed that we could do 4. And it's just going faster and faster every day. Kessel Run, these guys have done an incredible job too. They have turned the AOC into their user experience pilot of sorts, but it's one of our most important mission sets. And so today, they have delivered a completely new way of operating in an AOC. If we need to shut off an AOC, we can bring it back to a different location in the US. We could bring it back to multiple airmen working from disparate locations in the US. This is how all of our missions should work. And so this is something that is huge that we're working on scaling over the next year. But a lot of this comes back to that infrastructure that I talked about in the beginning. A couple of vignettes I promised. One of my favorites is back in 2015, we had a gyrocopter land on the White House lawn. And as I understand it, we actually had one of our most talented airmen looking at the screen that night, squinting his eyes and thinking, there might be something here. But at the end of the day, he couldn't tell, was it a wind pattern? Was it, a drone? We couldn't tell, for certain if there was anything there. And our most talented person said, I don't think it's anything to worry about. So lo and behold, it was a gyrocopter, and it did land on the White House lawn, and this kind of opened the aperture for, well, crap, what if it was something else? What if it wasn't just someone trying to make a political statement? What if they really wanted to harm us? And so General Angie Cadwell and the NORAD team, they dove in, and in about 6 months, they had compiled all of the data. They had pulled together, through a partnership with DIU, a vendor who could deliver, that they believed in. And that team took that same data, and they proved that if that night had happened again, that operator, or even someone lesser trained, could show up and use the software that they had developed, have the algorithm say, 98% or greater chance this is some sort of an unmanned object, and it is headed for DC airspace. And then the operator, instead of squinting his eyes and wondering, gee, I wonder what this is, can focus on doing all the communications needed to make a decision on what to do about that inbound object and determining how much of a threat it is. And so we were able to raise our level of awareness, raise our C2, and start to make better decisions. They did the same thing with the way that we look at cruise missiles. I was looking recently at a comparison at how we used to kind of have to understand, what was going on in our airspace. And I look at it and I'm thinking, looks like fog to me. A trained operator can say, oh, I'm pretty sure that's a cruise missile. Now I can look at it and say, oh, that looks very odd. That looks like something that's traveling very fast. It's not just wind, it's not just a bird. And an algorithm could tell me with a pretty high level of precision, this is a threat. With predictive maintenance, one of my favorite stats to quote here is that we've saved about $1.3 million on exit doors. And that's just one of those weird facts that we have, that we figured out that when the sensors started to go bad, that actually we could detect that. And if we changed it before, we were back in business. If we changed it after, it was probably going to cause that exit door to open in flight, which A, big safety problem, and B, was going to break the exit door. So $1.5 million in cost avoidance on that. And of course, we're having some really great stuff going on with threat hunting and big data. Just so the PowerShell commands are a huge, account for a huge number of our cyber intrusions. And just an awesome cyber operator figured out how to work with Elixir to get to a point of threat detection with 99.9% accuracy. So it's pretty cool what our airmen are doing when we just give them the tools that they need to do their jobs and give them access to the mission data they need to be lethal for us. So digital university, this is another thing that's going well, but I would love to see this get even more adoption. If you go to digitalu.af.mil right now, you can get a free Udemy license. You can go learn about anything you want to. You can go learn Python like General Raymond did. You can go learn about cloud engineering. If you're having a bad day, it's COVID, you can go learn about yoga and mindfulness. So pretty much anything that you need to learn in the technical realm or in the business realm, you can go onto DigitalU and do it. And we're working on bringing more and more people into DigitalU. And I was thrilled last week when the vice chief said, you know what, I want to log in over the weekend. I want to learn Python. I want to see what there is in here. And by the way, I want you guys within the next 2 weeks to design a GEO and SES level course only using DigitalU so that our general officers can go in and they can do some learning before they show up for our in-person GEO and SES courses. And I thought that was awesome. That gets after some of our general officer learning that we were talking about earlier. It'll make all of us smarter. And I think it's also really wonderful how the Air Force is starting to embrace more that there is a new way of learning. I was so thrilled meeting out with Heather Blackwell down at Keesler and seeing all of the things that they're doing in a blended learning environment, partially forced by COVID and partially recognizing that it is 2021 and people that are coming out of college or high school now that are joining the Air Force, they learn differently than we used to. And the blended learning, they're getting huge, just positive kudos on. So we also learned how to telework. That was huge this year. I remember at the beginning of COVID and before COVID, if you weren't in the building, you weren't working. Just telework. It's like, what do people do when they telework? I don't know. They're not here. And really, if I look at the metrics at the beginning of COVID, you could tell that we didn't care about telework. 7,000 VPN connections on a VPN-heavy network. We were able to get, the team was able to pull off about 450,000 connections in those first weeks. The DoD team worked around the clock to make sure that everybody could get up onto Teams, over 2 million users onto Teams in rapid succession. And all of a sudden, the whole DoD's eyes open to what could happen if you could work on your own mobile device anywhere, if you could collaborate in real time. It's completely changed the way that we do business, and it's huge. People are using workflows. They're automating their workflows. They're collaborating in real time on documents. They've stopped a lot of the madness of let me email you my thing and then email it to the next person for approval. The whole group can go in and work together, and then we can just move on. So this is a huge step in the last year. And so, I want to just reflect for a minute on how far we have come. Because, I'm relatively new to the Air Force. I've been around about 3.5 years. Most of the stuff that I talked to you about today, it wasn't here 3 years ago. We have made a huge amount of progress. So for just a second, I want to say, yes, good job, team. We have done a lot. But I kind of feel like, Captain Picard here a little bit, because the closer we get, the more frustrating it is. We've done so much. So why is it still so hard to move forward, and why does it take so long? And so one of the things, first I'll say, this diagram is actually a huge success story. After we had our first ABMS demo where we took out a cruise missile with a hypervelocity bullet, and we're cheering like it's the Super Bowl. We're so excited. As soon as I finished cheering, I was like, oh, crap. I bet they didn't use our network to do this. And it turned out they didn't. We had pulled in a 2 gig switch, we did the demo, and then the next week, almost like we missed our payment on the layaway plan, we had DISA come back and they took our switch away. And that kind of stinks. It kind of says, well, I guess we didn't care about making sure that that base was ABMS ready for the future. And the chief picked right up on that. He was not having it. He was just like, look, this can't be like a traveling circus. You need to have leave behind capability when we do this. And I took it personally too, that I really wanted to make sure that when we did the next ABMS demo, that there was leave behind capability there. And so the whole IT community came together, just blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that General Harigian had some really great leave behind capability for this demo. And this is a complicated chart, but what this signifies is all of the work that went into making that happen. Upgrading circuits from 256 megs in some cases to 10 gigs. First of all, wow, 256 megs. I did just say megabyte. Second, replacing some of our old capability with just a Snowball and a Starlink connection. For some of the capability, we were able to do that. Other things, it was stitching together data sources from legacy databases and applying AI tech on top. There were a lot of things that went into doing this. And part of it is like, yes, we did it. It was difficult. We accomplished it. We were Indiana Jones and we got through. We found the Holy Grail. And then you realize, crap, this is really hard and we have a lot of bases. Are we going to be able to do this every single time? We have to flip it on its head. We have to simplify our architecture and we have to move forward in a completely different way than we have before. And we have pieces of that path coming together and we have some successes. Doing it at our scale is really tough. And so we need to continue to partner on this. So first, zero trust, buzzword bingo. Definitely, a couple people are marking their cards here. I think General Radke just said bingo in the back. But, really zero trust. First of all, let's align on what this really means. You've heard about the security implications. Hey, we went from the walled fortress, to more of a model where maybe instead of having your ticket taken as you walk into the movie theater just once, I have an usher coming and asking me every 2 seconds while I'm sitting in my seat watching the movie, hey, can I see your ticket? Can I see your ticket? Can I see your ticket? That'd be super annoying if it wasn't automated. But in a zero trust world, that really is how it works. We're constantly looking at everything that's happening in our environment and we're making it more secure. But we're also just making it better. Because when you build up that wall, most of the time your adversary, if they spend enough money, they can go through that crack in the wall. They can find the gate that was open. Maybe they parachute in from overhead. But it's keeping all of us out. So we need us to be able to move freely. We need to know where our data is. We need to be able to have maneuver. But we need to impose the cost to the adversary. We need to have our data wherever we need it. I talked about the future of SIPR briefly earlier. We need one SIPR. There's no reason why we can't have one SIPR across our entire military domain with our allies, with our DIB partners. The zero trust journey helps move us toward that future SIPR capability. And in a world where I can mark and tag it, this is releasable for Five Eyes. This is releasable for these other allies. This is only releasable for maybe the Air Force or for secret within our own military. Just even being able to tag things, opens the aperture for us. But what this gives us is freedom to operate anytime, anywhere access while imposing greater cost to our adversary. And SolarWinds recently, we got pretty lucky, but we learned a lot of lessons there. And it really even showed us more evidence of why we have to get after this now. So this is the way that we are thinking about zero trust, and I'm really excited about this. You heard about Lottie Lotspeich earlier in General Wegeman's remarks. Lottie got us started on this, ACC, lots of heavy lifting. We now have Steve Hazelhorst leading the charge with some good partnership still from ACC, also from Nick Shalon and the CNAP team, which is probably one of the most robust and just game-changing zero trust pilots in the department right now that we're using in a lot of ways. But if you look at this, there are so many facets to zero trust. When will we say, woohoo, we made it? Well, it depends on which part of this we're looking at. Some of this we're doing today, or at least getting after. If you go to some parts of the Air Force, you're going to find the data tagging done. In some parts, you're going to find the semi-automated data tagging. You're going to find the data loss prevention. There are a lot of places where you will see the API integration. There are some parts of our Air Force that are using non-CAC authentication. There are some parts that are doing a really great job of ICAM using context with everything that they're doing. The problem is we're not doing this across the board. And so laying out a maturity model that helps start to set expectations about what we need to do at each layer. And then we're now actually dividing this into schedule and work streams, which I'm even more excited about. But the pieces are coming together. We're starting to be a little bit clearer with all of our operators about where we're going. So I'm excited about this. And then also, we have so many people writing software all over the Air Force. We have so many people innovating all over the Air Force. They're doing such incredible things. But sometimes they're not doing it together. And so I guess one ask I would ask of our airmen and our guardians is do it together. Never feel like you have to develop something alone. Always find other people that need it too and work with them. And this is just a couple of our organizations in the Air Force today that are working together to drive this value. We actually have folks in the Air Force that are writing open source code and also that are doing inner source code. The Airmen Coders did two internships now actually with Platform One, where we brought in coders from across the Air Force. We said, hey, here's a problem, go. And those airmen developers within 2 weeks were deploying those applications. And now they have a model where when they go back to their units, they can still be working together on those applications that they all use. That turns the sustainment model completely on its head. No longer do I have to say, well, who's going to sustain this? Well, the community will sustain it until the day that it is no longer relevant. And that day may never come, because if the community is sustaining it, it's constantly going to have additions of features by the community. And that's why the open source construct works so well. And then the 21st century IT showroom. This is a huge part of our current vision, but it's a huge gap right now as we're trying to put these pieces in place. Because our airmen and our guardians, they are having to innovate on things that have already been done over and over again. They're having to rebuild software that already exists commercially. They're rebuilding software that another unit also created. Or maybe it's software that 10 different units have created. They can't always find each other. So we are now building out this 21st century IT showroom. And again, not as fast as I'd like, but I'm glad that this is on its way, where you can get access to the commercial tools you need. Commercial companies, we want to make it easier for our guys to go in and click on that store of things that have been accredited for our network and that we have easy ways to buy. Just solving those two problems on a website makes a huge difference for our airmen. Making sure that you have the mission apps you need, a mission app store, Kessel Run, Platform One, Space Camp, they've all started to get after this. And actually the Iron Bank, if you haven't checked that out, it's huge. For the industry players, that's a great way to get your stuff containerized and in the hands of our airmen very, very quickly. Our airmen and our guardians and their development teams, they can go, they can port it over, they get full reciprocity, they can start using your product right away and just send the payment over. So that's huge. We need to do that for the non-development community too through Cloud One. And again, all of these things are in the works, but we're still a little bit in the last crusade as we move through, getting you the devices you need, the service you need, and the environment you need. We should be able to go to the Cloud One website and click, spin up environment, fully ATO'd, go forth and conquer. We know that we haven't cracked the nut yet because we still have airmen that go and just buy their AWS compute separately. So we still have some work to do to say, hey, well, why aren't you using Cloud One? How are we not meeting your needs today? And then finally, the integrated experience you deserve. If we have everyone using a common enterprise service catalog that is awesome, where people hold us accountable and say, you know what, you're not good enough here. I'm not ready to use that enterprise service because. And especially if people say, you know what, this money that I was going to spend to do my own thing over here, I'm gonna help make it better for everyone. Or maybe I did something so great over here, I'm gonna make it available to everyone through the service catalog, and now I don't have to maintain it anymore. I need the Air Force to maintain it, and I can go back to my core mission. This is huge. This is the way the industry operates, but for the last 10 years, as I understand it, in my recent history lessons, we really haven't been an enterprise. We've been groups of people that had to solve our problems independently. We value that. We value Indiana Jones going through and solving really hard problems. But what we really need to do is value that teamwork and working together. Now I want to give General Wagaman a little bit of a shout out from this morning and the 8 opportunities for winning in culture that he went through with those outstanding airmen that he highlighted. These are real things that are in our way today. And I'm just going to share a couple of thoughts on each of these and what we can all do to start getting after these things. So shattering the frozen middle, had to use General Wagaman's Slay the White Walkers hashtag. You know, the frozen middle, I have a lot of empathy actually for the frozen middle because there's so much demand above them and below them. You know, all of us, you know, I can stand on a stage and I can say, this is where we're going, let's do it. All the airmen are like, give it to me. I have it in my real life. I'm holding an iPhone. It's like the greatest C2 device in the world. Why can't I have that for my day-to-day mission? And the folks in the middle, they're stuck with implementing all of this stuff and haven't been brought up in an Air Force where they were constantly learning about new digital models, what's going on in the commercial sector. So that education piece is huge. The top cover piece is huge. I will tell you from my perspective, if you are a middle leader and, you know, and someone comes to you and they say, you know, the process is too slow, I don't want you to take it personally. I want you to think about what you can do to be a superhero, what you can do to thaw that frozen middle yourself, even if you are perhaps, you know, part of that middle. And think about, you know, if the CIO is willing to lean forward, and if Kessel Run can deploy code at many times a day, Platform One 20 times a day or more, then what can I do to make sure that my governance structures are in place that will support this? I know Kessel Run today, even as fast as they go, they occasionally run into, you know, a CDC and a multi-SES approval process for stuff that's already been approved. This most recently happened just 2 weeks ago. And this is all people trying to do the right thing. So let's all ask ourselves as we get into a process, does it still make sense? Is someone still telling me to do this? You know, would the CIO do it this way? Because if I'm the risk official and I don't think that we need to do it that way, then you don't need to do it that way. We need to really think about what we're doing to keep ourselves safe and to move forward. And if you have a CIO and an operational commander that are on the same page, which is often the case, you know, these days, you know, then perhaps we need to think about how to move those processes. If you have things that are keeping you from moving those processes, I want to know. I want to give you the top cover. I want you to know exactly how you can move through that and kill those processes for everybody. On seeing our digital talent and on the path to greatness, educating our senior decision makers, I do think that a lot of that is going to be helped through Digital U. And I'm so glad that it's getting more attention. I love going into Digital U. The guys at Bestman have done such a good job, not just deploying the platform, but working with people to make relevant Air Force learning paths. And they're awesome Air Force learning paths. They give us things that relate back to our mission, but they are completely commercial content. Exactly how Google and SpaceX and Tesla are training their workforces. And that's what we need. So I'm pretty excited about that. Now, fixing it and collaborating, really just, we do need to let people run and to get things done. I just want you to put those two things together. Bias toward action and do it with someone else. Make sure that you're always partnering across the organization, that you're always doing it together. Many hands make light work. And also use your A6s. And use your AFWorks team. You know, you have a great group of A6s right now that will absolutely bleed to get after this problem. You know, so if there's something in your way, you know, solve the problem. We want you to be completely empowered to solve the problem, but let them know what's going on. Give them the opportunity, or give AFWorks the opportunity to say, hey, these are the things that are going forward. Instead of you innovating from down here, maybe you can innovate from up here and solve the last mile problem that we haven't solved yet, because maybe we didn't even know it was a problem until you brought it up. Or maybe it's been solved 100 more times. But your A6, your AFWorks team, my team, we can all help to kind of help all of our airmen innovate at the next level rather than having to innovate all the way from the bottom up, a lot of the things that have been done. Under promise and over deliver, you know, this is tough. I got to tell you, I get frustrated too. You know, if I tell you where we're going and we're still headed that same direction the next year, you know, this is something that we all get frustrated by. All I can say is huge progress to date. You know, we walked through some of the things that we've done, but you're right. You know, we have to make sure that we do what we say we will do. And I will do my best to keep those promises and to be very open too on, if we step in it, we step in it. I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to say, you know what, I don't think we did the right thing here. This is what we learned. This is how we're going to pivot. I'd love for you to be empowered to do that too. And amen on aligning authority, responsibility, and resources. Believe it or not, that's the hardest thing on this list. But we're having the right conversations back at the Pentagon now about how do we align digital spend? How do we hold people accountable? Aligning the responsibilities, getting the team in place. So these are all hard things. These are all cultural things. But I am seeing some positive progress there. So finally, we need everybody in the fight. And I love, we have an incredible chief right now. I want to take advantage of having such an incredible leader in that seat, as well as having General Wegeman, General Radegui, we have General Cadwell, we have our AFWorks teams, our Kessel Run teams, Nick Shalon. We just really have an incredible team of superheroes coming together. I hope you like that, the Captain America. You'll have to look very closely. And make sure I got that right. I think that might actually even be General Brown under that Spider-Man mask, but we won't know. But at AFA, General Brown said, for our United States Air Force, we need to get this right. We may only have one shot, no do-overs, accelerate, change, or lose. I love this quote from the Avengers. It's so true. If we don't get after this now, we're never going to catch up. It's just going to be too late. You have folks like Elon Musk saying AI is more dangerous than nukes. You have Vladimir Putin saying he who harnesses AI will rule the world. All of this stuff has to come together, to make it all work. So please bring your superpowers to the fight. Everybody gets a flamethrower. If you see policy that's in your way, you see redundant IT, you see a place where we can ruthlessly attack manual process, take the initiative and do it. Consider yourself having an open mic to me. We'll have some CIO jam sessions coming up. I want you to come. I want you to tell me, what are we missing? How can we partner? And finally, when you see that Starship Enterprise, when you see the word enterprise, I don't want you to think about, the enterprise as something that didn't meet your needs in the past. I want you to think of you as part of the enterprise. You are part of building that thing that we are going to have in the future, where everyone benefits from it, where we actually have a service catalog that works for everyone, where we can show up and we have the tools we need to do our job. We have those digitally savvy airmen, and we're all working together. And so, I'll leave you with this. I promised the Star Wars fans you'd have at least one thing. So there you go. This is the way. We have to build this enterprise together. And so I need your help, and I look forward to working with you out here from Colorado Springs. Oh, okay. I guess, we still have a couple minutes for questions.
Yes, ma'am. We have quite a few questions in the Q&A chat.
Okay.
We'll make sure that you get these after the conference so you can review. But there are several that address talent development, career progression types of questions. Talked a lot about technologies, development and implementation, process improvement. But as far as digital talent, has there been any discussion about standing up a digital talent task force at AFPC to address a full range of hiring-related challenges, such as civilian position classifications, incentives for digital talent, alternate hiring processes, et cetera?
Yeah, so great question. And there actually is a task force stood up, and it's been stood up for about a year now. And I think it is having the right conversations. But I will tell you that the kind of endless loop we end up back in is, what is the requirement? It's the same endless loop that we end up in on a lot of things. And so I actually see Digital U as a way to break through that and to allow us to determine what the requirements are over time. I don't have to rewrite all of the AFIs completely, overhaul the career service to have Kessel Run create a badge that says this is what a software developer should look like. So there are a lot of things that we need to get after. It has to be formalized. We've looked at special indicators. We've looked at incentives. This is something that the chief is re-engaging on now, and it's something that I'm also very passionate about. I don't think that we've done enough. We do have the structures in place, but we're all pushing pretty hard to get to something. And in the meantime, I do think that Digital U is going to be a huge part of driving that requirement.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm so glad folks got less shy in the afternoon. Is there another one?
We have one special request question as well to wrap things up here. Lots of great cultural references. Can you share your Under Siege experience from Keesler Air Force Base's Tech School?
Oh, awesome. Yes. So I love using the analogy of Under Siege with Digital U, where sometimes your best fighter is the cook. You know, we don't want to wait until all of the terrorists, storm the battleship to find out that, Steven Seagal down in the kitchen, he's the guy that beats up all of the terrorists. And so I've used this analogy a couple of times for, finding those hidden gems in Digital U. And then I thought it was hilarious when I went down to Keesler Air Force Base and I actually met a guy who had been a cook in the service and had just moved over to the cyber career field. And I was using the Under Siege reference there. And then one of the folks pointed out, yeah, this guy right here, he used to be the cook. And I was just like, all right, well, I already know you're going to be the ninja. But we literally have folks, that they are doing incredible things in their garage. They're doing incredible things in the kitchen. And we just need to know, this is the talent that we have that can tap. We've got to level the playing field, make sure everybody has that opportunity. And that's exactly what happened with this guy. I was teasing him. He's always going to have friends because he knows how to cook too. That's absolutely, we have to have flexibility. If he realizes, I'm more of a ninja, writing algorithms, and that's where my skill set is, where my talent and passions are, we have to provide those pathways. Thank you. And I think that's it. I'm getting the hook. So thank you guys so much.
And we always appreciate you having here. Thanks for spending your time and your experience with us. We'll be sending you one of our embossed notebooks from the chapter to commemorate your time with us here today. But again, thank you for sharing your experience. Congratulations on the position. We hope to be seeing you back here many times to continue to share your experience with us.
Awesome.
So thank you
very
very
much. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. We will take a break now for a few minutes. So go ahead and try and go through that our virtual exhibit hall, qualify for that iPad as I mentioned earlier by interacting with all the booths there, and we'll see you back here at 13:30 for our next expert panel from NORAD Northcom, who will be sharing their take on convergence with us. So see you one line down in your agenda in just about 15 minutes from now.